The law of Moses, or Torah, was central to the life of the Hebrews. Having been a people enslaved and suddenly set free, they were like a ship cut loose from the harbor, free to sail wherever the wind might blow, and that was precisely the problem. For they were like a ship, to be sure, but without a rudder. Freedom without limits is not freedom at all, but chaos. And Moses knew all too well that if the Hebrew people were to survive as a community, there would need to be some limits. But to say that the law of Moses was just a collection of ordinances would be to miss something very important about God's relationship with the Hebrew people. It was a covenant between the one God and the people whom he loved and created. That same God has created us and loves us. And for us, his commandments continue to speak with freshness and integrity, as we shall see in today's presentation. Dr. Walter J. Harrelson is professor of Old Testament at Vanderbilt University Divinity School. He is a widely recognized scholar in the area of Old Testament biblical theology and is currently at work on the new revision of the Revised Standard Version of the Bible, due for release in 1990.
We're all familiar with the Ten Commandments. Moses went to the top of the mountain in Mount Sinai and there received from God these short utterances. They are short phrases, almost all of them preceded by a no, and they describe vividly those kinds of human conduct that will surely ruin life, destroy life in community. How do they divide up? Into four groups. There are first those demands that we put our life completely at God's disposal. First, worship no other God. Then, make no images of God. And thirdly, do not use God's name to do damage to other people. In the next section, there are two commandments. Every seventh day, stop doing what you're now doing and rest. You and your animals are to rest. Rest is as necessary as work is, for life consists of stopping work, stopping struggling, and having time to rest and to worship, to enjoy life. And the second of the commands in this section is show respect for your elder parents. Not young children showing respect for their adult parents so much as elders receiving respect from their adult sons and daughters. And then the third group, do not kill and do not commit adultery. Life belongs to God, and human beings must always respect and cherish life. If they ever damage life, it must be for the sake of preserving it. As when, for example, a person stops someone about to kill someone else, or as nations step in to stop a mad leader like Hitler. And sexual relations between people, we're told, create a unity so that one is to have sexual relations with a permanent partner. Casual sex, or sex without thought of commitment or consequences, or violent sex, of course, is ruled out. And the next group, the fourth, contains three commandments. The first, do not take away the person or the property of other people. The next, let persons live with the goods of life that make living possible. Don't be a false witness before your courts, and let your word be a reliable, a truthful, a sound word. And the last of the commandments is, don't hanker after the life and goods of others, so that the lust for things or for what other people have makes you ill. How did these commandments help people? As negative, they show central, important aspects of life that simply ruin our lives if we do them. We have to debate the question of these prohibitions, however, and as we debate the question, what is murder, what is adultery, then positive guidelines have to be worked out, and these, of course, are always needed. But the commandments put the negative points first. Whatever you do, don't misuse God's name and power in the world, but give yourself to God as the source and guide of all life. Whatever you do, don't treat work as the only purpose of your life. Stop and rest. Stop and pray. Stop and worship God. Stop and delight in the creation. Don't treat life as of no consequence when it is no longer useful. Aged parents have to be respected. Don't just hide them away and forget about them. Whatever you do, don't act as though other people's life and goods don't count. Respect life, respect others. These short statements, as we can see, give us orientation to life, basic orientation. They don't tell us all that we need to know, and they don't come through as petty legalism that clutters up our lives with do's and with don'ts. They rather insist, not this. Are they really from Moses? Well, we can't be sure. They may be, they may not, but they certainly are original and striking prohibitions, and they could well be from Moses or from Moses' time. They do have, some of them, parallels in other legal materials, but not all of them have such parallels. The commandment to stop work and rest every seventh day is unique in the ancient Near Eastern world. And the commandment against the making of plastic images of God, of graven images, this commandment is absolutely unique too. It has no parallel in any of the legal materials from the ancient world. And as a collection, the collection also is without parallel. That is, 10 utterances of this sort just don't appear in the other collections that we have from Egypt or from Babylonia. I believe that Moses did begin these commandments under God's guidance. But they're so negative. That's what we often hear. Isn't it better to turn to the positive counsel of the New Testament? Love God, love the neighbor. I think we need both. The 10 Commandments are a way of accepting God's absolute no and of searching out what that no means for our life in community. We know that God wants us to hunger for unity, and we know that we do hunger for unity. And it's a wonderful thing to learn that there's no God but the one God. There is God the Creator, and there is everything that God has made, and there's no other kind of entity in the world but God and God's creation. We're tempted to impose our religious views on other people, and the third commandment says we mustn't do that. We're all too ready to act violently against others, and the sixth commandment, the commandment not to kill, stops us from that violence. We lust after others and their goods and their gifts, and the seventh commandment and the 10th help stop us from acting on our lust. The 10 Commandments are just what the world needs. They make us stop, reflect on what we're doing, make us recognize the path that's sure to lead to ruin, and join with others in searching for the true path.
As you look at the role of the law in the life of faith, look for ways in which the law holds the covenant people together. how it gives a sense of social justice in a world otherwise gone awry. How can it move beyond being merely restrictive to becoming the force that makes life meaningful and free?